The observation deck of the Terran diplomatic station hung in absolute silence, save for the soft quantum pulse hum of holographic displays. Captain Aria Rodriguez remained motionless, her cybernetic eye a marvel of human engineering, a gleaming silver-blue implant that continuously scanned, processed, and analyzed the intricate diplomatic dance unfolding before her. The Cosmic Alliance Summit was reaching a critical point. Representatives from dozens of alien civilizations filled the massive circular chamber, each species occupying a carefully designated zone that reflected their unique physiological requirements. The Vornak delegation shimmered like living crystals, their multifaceted bodies refracting light in mesmerizing patterns of blue and crimson. Beside them, the Luminar representatives existed as coherent energy fields, their gaseous forms contained within intricate force field generators that allowed them to interact with solid-state beings. At the center of the chamber, the Cretal diplomatic corps stood in stark contrast. Silicon-based life forms whose bodies resembled intricate geometric sculptures of obsidian and chrome. Their communications occurred through complex vibrational patterns that translated into language, each movement a carefully choreographed message. Aria's cybernetic eye zoomed in, capturing microscopic details that biological eyes would miss. Micro-expressions, subtle energy fluctuations, the almost imperceptible tension building between delegations. At last, she subvocalized, triggering her neural communication link. Begin comprehensive analysis. A soft, androgynous voice responded directly into her auditory cortex, tracking multiple tension vectors. Probability of diplomatic breakdown, 87.6% within the next 72 standard hours. The Vornak ambassador, a being known as Crystal X Prime, was changing colors rapidly. What had begun as a calm azure was now a violent crimson, indicating extreme emotional distress. Its multifaceted form vibrated with barely contained rage as it addressed the chamber. The resource allocation proposed by the Luminar Collective is nothing short of systematic economic warfare. The translation matrices built into the diplomatic station rendered the statement with perfect clarity, though the underlying emotional nuance spoke volumes. The Luminar representative, a swirling mass of coherent energy that somehow managed to convey both bureaucratic calm and underlying menace, responded with a series of controlled energy pulses. Allocation is based on established galactic protocols. Your interpretation is incorrect. Aria knew better. This was more than a simple disagreement about resource distribution. This was the culmination of centuries of suppressed tensions, of hierarchical structures that had maintained an uneasy peace through complex diplomatic manipulation. Her neural link to Atlas continued to process vast amounts of data, diplomatic communication logs, historical conflict databases, economic projection models. The AI was doing more than just analyzing. It was predicting, modeling potential outcomes with a complexity that would have been unimaginable just decades earlier. Probability of armed conflict, Atlas reported, increases by 0.03% with each diplomatic exchange. The human observers, a small team of diplomats, strategists, and xenoanalysts, watched with a combination of professional detachment and barely contained excitement. They were the newest members of the Cosmic Alliance, a species that most other civilizations viewed as technologically primitive and diplomatically inconsequential. What the other species didn't realize was that humanity had been watching, learning, preparing. Every moment of this summit was being analyzed. Every subtle diplomatic nuance, every micro-expression, every hint of underlying conflict was being processed and understood. The humans weren't just observers. They were students of a complex galactic game, and they were about to become its most unexpected players. Aria Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest smile. The powder keg was about to explode, and humanity was ready. Dr. Kwame Mokoro's fingers danced across holographic interfaces, his dark eyes reflecting 1,000 streams of rapidly changing data. The Europan Research Complex hummed with a nervous energy that felt almost alive, a living organism of human potential on the brink of something extraordinary. Confirm the data stream, he called out to his lead analyst, Dr. Miranda Chen. She nodded, her augmented neural interface casting a soft blue glow around her head. The leak is authentic. Luminar diplomatic encryption was compromised at the tertiary communication node. The leaked documents were more than just a diplomatic incident. They were a thermonuclear bomb dropped into the delicate ecosystem of galactic politics. Detailed records of resource extraction showed the Cretal had been systematically manipulating economic projections, creating artificial scarcity in critical mineral-rich systems. What had been whispered as conspiracy was now cold, hard evidence. Quantum communication networks began to fracture. What moments ago had been intricate channels of interstellar dialogue now sparked and died like severed electrical lines. Trade routes that had sustained hundreds of civilizations for millennia went dark, one by one. In the central command hub, massive holographic displays tracked the progressive breakdown. Each severed communication line appeared as a thin, dying thread of light. Blues and greens that had represented stable communication networks now blurred into angry reds and violent purples. Atlas is projecting complete communication breakdown within 47 standard hours, Miranda reported, her voice carefully controlled. Dr. Okoro knew this was more than just a diplomatic crisis. This was the moment civilizations died, not with a bang, but with a systematic unraveling of the complex trust that had held them together. The Cretal were the first to respond officially. Their silicon-based communication arrays broadcast a series of rapid, complex vibrational messages that translated into a declaration of defensive posturing. It was bureaucratic language for preparing for war. The Luminar response was more subtle. Their energy-based communication networks began to isolate and protect their core systems. Entire planetary economies found themselves cut off. Communication channels going dark like stars winking out of existence. We're seeing unprecedented levels of systemic isolation, Dr. Okoro muttered, more to himself than to anyone else in the room. Each civilization is retreating into itself. But humanity was doing something different. While other species pulled back, closed down, and prepared for conflict, the human research teams saw opportunity. Every destroyed communication relay was a chance to understand. Every fractured diplomatic channel was a window into the true mechanics of interstellar conflict. Project Atlas continued its relentless analysis. Machine learning algorithms developed specifically for xenopolitical research were consuming data at rates that would have been impossible just decades earlier. Each breakdown, each moment of tension was another data point, another piece of a complex puzzle. Probability models are showing complete cosmic alliance collapse within 72 hours. Atlas reported, its androgynous voice carrying no hint of the potentially civilization-ending implications of its statement. Dr. Okoro allowed himself a small smile. Most would see this as a moment of terror. He saw it as the greatest research opportunity in human history. Miranda approached, holding a quantum data crystal. The initial predictive models are complete. Want to see? The holographic display flickered to life, showing complex three-dimensional representations of potential galactic conflict scenarios. But these weren't just predictions. They were blueprints, potential pathways through the coming chaos. This, Dr. Okoro said, his voice quiet but intense, is how we change everything. Outside the research complex, the first signs of interstellar conflict began to emerge. But inside, humanity was preparing for something far more profound than war. They were preparing to redesign how civilizations interact. The Europan Research Complex stretched for kilometers beneath the thick ice of Jupiter's moon, a testament to human engineering and unbridled ambition. Dr. Elena Chen stood at the epicenter of humanity's most audacious project, surrounded by holographic displays that pulsed with an almost living energy. Nanomaterial hull integrity at 99.987%, announced Dr. Ramirez, his augmented hands dancing across quantum interfaces. Quantum drive resonance is holding steady. Elena's eyes never left the primary display. What looked like a simple metallic surface was actually the most advanced piece of technology humanity had ever created. The adaptive nanomaterial hull could reconfigure itself in milliseconds, shifting its molecular structure to respond to any potential threat or environmental challenge. "Begin quantum entanglement sequence," she commanded. The room hummed with anticipation. This wasn't just another research project. This was humanity's insurance policy, a technology so advanced it could reshape the fundamental understanding of space travel. Massive electromagnetic containment fields flickered to life, creating a bubble of controlled chaos. The prototype ship, unofficially dubbed the Prometheus, began to take shape. Its exterior was a study in impossible geometry, surfaces that seemed to shift and breathe, defying traditional understanding of spacecraft design. Dr. Chen knew the stakes. The Cosmic Alliance's collapse meant that humanity's window of opportunity was rapidly closing. Every major civilization was retreating, preparing for conflict. But humans, they were preparing to leap forward. At last, she vocalized, "Run full predictive model on quantum drive performance." The AI's response was instantaneous. Trillions of potential scenarios began to cascade through the research complex's quantum computing arrays. Each potential trajectory, each minute variation was analyzed, predicted, optimized. A younger researcher, Kai Martins, approached with a look of barely contained excitement. "The communication penetration protocols are showing unprecedented results. We can potentially cut through any known jamming technology in less than 0.03 seconds. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Most would see this as a technical achievement. She saw it as a key to survival. The complex itself was a marvel of human adaptation. Powered by a revolutionary fusion quantum hybrid energy system, it could operate indefinitely. Massive underground hydroponics facilities ensured complete self-sufficiency. Multiple redundant communication and defense systems meant that even if the entire solar system went dark, this facility could continue its work. "Quantum drive alignment is perfect," Ramirez reported. "We're seeing resonance patterns that theoretically shouldn't be possible." The ship's design was more than just a technological achievement. It was a statement. Where other civilizations built massive, rigid vessels, the Prometheus could reshape itself. Its communication systems could predict and counter electronic warfare attempts before they were even initiated. Elena walked to a secondary display showing global resource allocation. Every university, every research facility, every technological company had been redirected to this singular purpose. Humanity had transformed itself into a distributed adaptive intelligence network. "Final systems check," she announced. The room fell silent. This wasn't just a test of a spacecraft. This was a test of human potential. Quantum drive engaging in 3, 2, 1. A pulse of energy so intense it could have powered entire cities erupted from the prototype. The Prometheus seemed to fold in on itself, then expand, not physically, but across dimensional probabilities that most species couldn't even comprehend. Dr. Chen watched the data streams with a mix of scientific detachment and profound wonder. The ship had just traveled a distance that would have taken conventional spacecraft centuries, in a fraction of a second. "Success," Atlas reported, its voice carrying a hint of what almost sounded like pride. Humanity was no longer waiting to be discovered. They were preparing to do the discovering. The first missile struck the Vornak primary colony with the precision of a surgical instrument and the fury of a dying star. Captain Aria Rodriguez watched the holographic display, her cybernetic eye capturing details that would have been invisible to standard human perception. The attack wasn't just an act of war. It was a calculated dismantling of an entire civilization's infrastructure. Vornak communication networks collapsed like a house of glass, each shattered connection sending cascading waves of destruction through their intricate societal systems. Their crystalline cities, once monuments to technological brilliance, began to fracture and dissolve, their complex quantum-based infrastructure unable to withstand the systematic assault. At last, Aria vocalized, "Begin comprehensive data collection." The AI's response was instantaneous. Massive data streams began to collect and analyze every microsecond of the unfolding conflict. Where other species saw chaos, humanity saw an unprecedented research opportunity. The Cretal response was equally brutal. Their silicon-based warfare algorithms launched a complete economic assault, triggering systemic failures in financial networks that spread like a digital plague. Entire planetary economies crashed within moments, their complex trading systems reduced to static and silence. Aria's stealth research vessel, the CSS Horizon, moved like a ghost through the developing conflict. Equipped with the most advanced adaptive camouflage technology humanity had ever developed, it could navigate through regions of space that would have been considered impossible to traverse just months earlier. Tracking multiple conflict vectors, Atlas reported. Probability of total systemic collapse, 94.3%. The Luminar delegation's response was perhaps the most terrifying. Instead of traditional warfare, they launched a comprehensive information warfare campaign that began to unravel the very fabric of communication between alien civilizations. Energy-based communication networks became battlegrounds of misinformation and strategic disruption. Dr. Kwame Okoro, monitoring from the Europan Research Complex, leaned forward with an intensity that bordered on scientific ecstasy. "This is it," he muttered to Miranda Chen. "We're watching the complete deconstruction of the Cosmic Alliance in real time." Each destroyed communication relay was a data point. Each shattered diplomatic channel was a window into the true mechanics of interstellar conflict. The human research teams had prepared for this moment for decades. While other civilizations retreated to their home systems, humanity pushed forward. Specialized drones, nearly invisible and capable of quantum communication, began to map the developing conflict with unprecedented detail. Adaptive response protocols are functioning at 99.7% efficiency, Miranda reported, her augmented neural interface processing millions of data points per second. Aria watched as an entire Vornak communication hub simply winked out of existence. Most would see destruction. She saw a complex system breaking down, revealing its most fundamental components. The CSS Horizon moved closer to the conflict zones. Its adaptive hull could reconfigure faster than any known targeting system could track. Quantum communication arrays began to collect data that would have been impossible to gather through traditional means. Atlas is developing preliminary conflict models, the AI reported. Current projections suggest complete galactic communication breakdown within 72 standard hours. But where other species saw the end of civilization, humanity saw opportunity. Dr. Okoro's voice echoed through the research complex. "We're not just observing a collapse," he said, his voice carrying a mixture of scientific excitement and strategic insight. "We're learning how to rebuild." Outside, the galaxy tore itself apart. Inside human research facilities, a different kind of work was happening. They were taking apart the mechanisms of civilization, understanding its most fundamental components, preparing to redesign everything. The transformation began quietly, almost imperceptibly at first. Universities across Earth shifted from competition to collaboration with a speed that would have been impossible just years earlier. Research facilities that had once guarded their discoveries now shared them with a collective urgency. Corporate laboratories merged their resources, their intellectual property becoming a shared human asset. Dr. Miranda Chen stood in the Global Coordination Center, a massive facility that looked more like a living organism than a traditional command hub. Holographic displays wrapped around her, each screen representing a different sector of human innovation: quantum computing, adaptive materials, communication technologies, space exploration. "We're seeing a complete restructuring of human potential," she reported to Dr. Okoro, who was monitoring the global network from the Europan Research Complex. It wasn't just a technological transformation. It was a fundamental reimagining of human society. Educational systems were the first to change. Traditional boundaries between disciplines dissolved. A young engineer might now be simultaneously studying quantum physics, xenolinguistics, and adaptive materials science. Universities became dynamic networks of knowledge, with students and researchers from every corner of the globe working on unified projects. Atlas, humanity's most advanced artificial intelligence, played a crucial role. It wasn't just a tool, it was a collaborative partner that could process and synthesize information at speeds that made previous computational methods look like ancient abacuses. Global resource allocation is now running at 97.3% efficiency, Atlas reported. Previous economic models have been completely redesigned. In orbital research stations, in deep-sea complexes, in facilities scattered across every continent, humanity was rewriting its own potential. Military research merged with medical innovation. Space exploration technologies found applications in climate restoration. Every resource, every insight was channeled into a singular, focused effort. Captain Aria Rodriguez oversaw the transformation from a next-generation research vessel. Her cybernetic eye tracked the global changes, analyzing the emergent patterns of human collaboration. "We're becoming something new," she muttered, watching as research teams from previously competing nations now worked as a single distributed intelligence network. The change wasn't just technological. It was cultural, philosophical, fundamental. Economic systems were the next to transform. Traditional capitalist models gave way to a more fluid, adaptive approach. Resources were allocated based on global potential rather than individual profit. A breakthrough in a Brazilian research facility could immediately be applied by teams in Japan, in Kenya, in Canada. Dr. Chen watched as a young researcher in Mumbai collaborated in real time with a team in Buenos Aires. Their work seamlessly integrated through quantum communication networks. The old barriers, national, cultural, disciplinary, were simply dissolving. Atlas continued its relentless analysis. Human collaborative potential is increasing exponentially, the AI reported. Current projections suggest a 340% increase in innovative capacity within the next 18 months. In the Europan Research Complex, Dr. Okoro saw more than just numbers. He saw the birth of a new kind of human civilization. Military research facilities were repurposed. Defense technologies were reimagined as tools for exploration, for problem-solving, for understanding. The same adaptive technologies developed for potential conflict were now being used to address global challenges: climate restoration, resource management, space exploration. "We're not preparing for war," Aria told her crew. "We're preparing to understand." The transformation touched every aspect of human society. Communication technologies that had been developed for potential conflict were now being used to create unprecedented levels of global understanding. Adaptive materials designed for military applications were now solving infrastructure challenges in developing regions. Humanity was no longer a collection of competing nations. It had become a single, adaptive, collaborative intelligence. And the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The first human ships that emerged were nothing short of a cosmic miracle. Captain Aria Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the CSS Prometheus, her cybernetic eye scanning the vast, infinite darkness of space. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was a living testament to human potential, a breathing embodiment of humanity's collective innovation. Its hull shimmered with adaptive nanomaterials that seemed to breathe and shift, molecular structures rearranging themselves in milliseconds. Where traditional spacecraft were rigid and predictable, the Prometheus was fluid, alive, impossible. Quantum drive engagement in 3, 2, 1. Her navigation officer, Lieutenant Zura Kim, announced. The ship didn't just move. It folded space around itself, creating corridors through the universe that defied every known law of physics. Most alien civilizations relied on massive energy expenditures to traverse minimal distances. The Prometheus could cross entire sectors with less energy than a small city would use in a day. Atlas, the ship's AI, was more than a navigation system. It was a collaborative intelligence that worked in perfect synchronization with the human crew. Detecting multiple alien communication networks, the AI reported. Adaptive camouflage protocols are online. The first encounters were met with absolute disbelief. A Cretal deep space monitoring station detected the Prometheus first. Their silicon-based sensors, designed to track massive energy signatures, simply couldn't process what they were seeing. The human ship moved like a ghost, sometimes visible, sometimes not, its quantum signature dancing between potential states of existence. Quantum uncertainty is functioning at 99.94% efficiency, Lieutenant Kim reported, her augmented hands dancing across holographic interfaces. Dr. Elena Chen, monitoring from the Europan Research Complex, watched the live data streams with scientific ecstasy. This wasn't just a spacecraft. This was a fundamental reimagining of space travel. The Vornak were the first to attempt communication. Their crystalline communication arrays sent out complex vibrational messages, expecting the traditional call and response of interstellar diplomacy. The Prometheus responded in a way that completely shattered their understanding. Instead of a standard communication, the ship's adaptive interface began to decode and reinterpret the Vornak communication in real time. It wasn't just translation. It was a complete linguistic and cultural analysis that happened faster than the aliens could comprehend. "We are not here to conquer," Atlas communicated, using a communication protocol that was simultaneously a message, a cultural exchange, and a complex data handshake. "We are here to understand." Aboard the ship, Captain Rodriguez allowed herself a slight smile. Most would see this as first contact. She saw it as the first step in a complete reimagining of interstellar communication. The ship's capabilities went far beyond movement and communication. Its sensors could analyze entire planetary ecosystems in milliseconds. Its adaptive hull could withstand environmental conditions that would obliterate traditional spacecraft. Scanning Vornak primary communication relays, Atlas reported, identifying potential communication bottlenecks and systemic inefficiencies. Lieutenant Kim looked up, her augmented eyes reflecting the holographic displays. "They have no idea what's happening," she muttered. And they didn't. The Vornak monitoring station was experiencing a complete system overload. The Prometheus wasn't just a ship, it was a living, adaptive intelligence that could analyze and understand faster than the systems designed to track it. Dr. Chen's voice came through the communication systems. "Quantum resonance is holding steady. They're seeing us exactly how we want them to see us." The Prometheus moved through space like a whisper, like a dream, like a possibility that hadn't quite decided whether it wanted to be real. Humanity had not just entered the galactic stage. They had rewritten the entire script. The transformation began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Dr. Kwame Okoro stood in the galactic mediation chamber aboard the CSS Prometheus, watching as representatives from 3 previously warring alien civilizations attempted to communicate. The room itself was a marvel of human engineering. Adaptive environmental systems that could instantaneously adjust to the physiological needs of each species, communication interfaces that translated not just language, but cultural context and emotional nuance. "The key isn't conflict resolution," he explained to Captain Aria Rodriguez, who stood nearby. "It's creating a framework where conflict becomes unnecessary." Atlas, the ship's advanced AI, began processing the communication streams. Where traditional diplomatic systems would have struggled with the complex linguistic and cultural barriers, the AI worked with quantum-level precision. It wasn't just translating words, it was creating a comprehensive understanding that bridged millennia of misunderstanding. The Cretal representative, a being of living silicon whose communication occurred through intricate vibrational patterns, had been attempting to discuss resource allocation for what would have traditionally been hours of fruitless negotiation. But something was different now. Atlas introduced a new communication protocol. It wasn't a compromise. It was a complete reimagining of resource distribution that took into account the unique needs and potential of each civilization. Adaptive resource allocation model suggests a 276% increase in collective potential, the AI reported, its voice carrying a tone that seemed to bridge clinical precision with something almost like hope. Lieutenant Zora Kim monitored the communication interfaces, her augmented eyes tracking millions of data points per second. "We're not just solving their problems," she muttered. "We're showing them how to solve problems." The human approach was revolutionary. Where the Cosmic Alliance had relied on rigid hierarchical structures, humanity introduced flexibility. Advanced AI systems began mediating conflicts with a level of nuance that shocked veteran diplomats. Cultural exchange programs replaced military deployments. Economic models were rewritten to ensure collective growth. Dr. Elena Chen, monitoring from the Europan Research Complex, watched the data streams with scientific excitement. "It's not about winning," she explained to her team. "It's about creating a system where winning becomes irrelevant." On planetary systems across the galaxy, human intervention began to take shape. Adaptive terraforming technologies could transform hostile environments. Communication networks developed by human researchers could bridge gaps that had existed for millennia. The Vornak were the first to fully embrace the new approach. Their crystalline civilization, once rigid and hierarchical, began to transform. Human-developed adaptive learning systems helped them redesign their entire societal structure, moving from a strict case system to a more fluid, collaborative model. Probability of systemic improvement, Atlas reported, increases by 0.03% with each new communication protocol. It wasn't conquest. It wasn't even diplomacy in the traditional sense. It was a fundamental reimagining of how civilizations could interact. Captain Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. Each intervention, each communication was a carefully designed lesson in collaboration. The humans weren't imposing their will. They were showing potential. "We're not here to rule," she told the alien representatives. "We're here to demonstrate what's possible." The adaptive communication interfaces began to show something unprecedented. Species that had been enemies for millennia started to find common ground. Resource conflicts that had seemed insurmountable began to dissolve as new collaborative models emerged. Dr. Okoro watched a luminar energy being and a cretal silicon-based life form engage in a collaborative problem-solving session that would have been impossible months earlier. The communication wasn't just happening, it was evolving in real time. "This," he said quietly, "is how civilizations are reborn." Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had shown it how to reimagine itself. The moment of transformation came not with a thunderous declaration, but with a whisper of possibility. Dr. Miranda Chen stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Coordination Center, watching as representatives from dozens of alien civilizations worked together in ways that would have been impossible just years earlier. The vast chamber was a living testament to human innovation. Adaptive environmental systems that could simultaneously support beings of pure energy, silicon-based life forms, and carbon-based organisms. "It's not about winning," she murmured to Dr. Kwame Okoro, who stood beside her. "It's about creating a framework where winning becomes irrelevant." Atlas, humanity's most advanced artificial intelligence, processed millions of diplomatic and strategic data points per second. The AI was more than a computational system. It was a collaborative intelligence that had become the cornerstone of a new approach to galactic governance. Captain Aria Rodriguez's voice came through the communication systems. The CSS Prometheus, humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, was completing its latest mission. A comprehensive survey of potential collaborative zones between previously conflicting civilizations. "We're seeing unprecedented levels of systemic integration," Atlas reported. Its voice carried a tone that was simultaneously clinical and something almost like hope. The transformation was total and profound. Economic models that had once been based on competition were now designed around collective potential. Resource allocation systems developed by human researchers allowed each civilization to maximize its unique capabilities while supporting the broader galactic ecosystem. The Vornak, once a rigidly hierarchical civilization, had completely reimagined their societal structure. Their crystalline communication networks now served as a model of collaborative intelligence. The Cretal had transformed their silicon-based societies, moving from strict territorial divisions to a fluid, adaptive model of collective development. Lieutenant Zura Kim monitored the communication interfaces, her augmented eyes tracking the complex interactions. "We're not just solving their problems," she observed. "We're showing them how to solve problems." Adaptive terraforming technologies developed by human researchers could transform hostile planetary environments in weeks, where previous technologies would have taken centuries. Communication networks bridged gaps that had existed for millennia, allowing for unprecedented levels of cultural and technological exchange. Dr. Elena Chen's research teams had developed communication protocols that went beyond simple translation. These were living systems that could adapt in real time, understanding not just the words but the entire cultural and emotional context of each interaction. The key, Dr. Okoro explained to a group of visiting alien diplomats, is to create a system where collective potential always exceeds individual limitation. The Prometheus moved through space like a living embodiment of this philosophy, a ship that was simultaneously a research facility, a diplomatic mission, and a demonstration of what was possible when creativity met collaborative intelligence. Atlas continued its relentless analysis. Probability of continued systemic improvement, the AI reported, increases by 0.03% with each new communication protocol. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had shown it how to reimagine itself. Planetary systems that had been locked in conflict for millennia now found themselves engaged in collaborative research projects. Species that had once viewed each other as existential threats now worked together on challenges that no single civilization could solve alone. The adaptive governance model developed by human researchers became the new standard. It wasn't a fixed system, but a living, breathing framework that could evolve in real time. Traditional hierarchical structures gave way to distributed intelligence networks that could respond to challenges with unprecedented speed and creativity. Captain Rodriguez watched the holographic displays, her cybernetic eye capturing details that would have been invisible to standard biological perception. "We're not done," she told her crew. "This is just the beginning." And it was. The galaxy had been transformed, not through conquest, but through the simple, profound demonstration of what was possible when intelligence, creativity, and collaborative potential were allowed to flourish. Humanity had emerged, and nothing would ever be the same again.